Great. Hi everyone. I hope we are all doing well. So by way of introduction, my name is Zoe Hill. I am the founder and CEO of Premier Admin Services. I have been in the assistant world for, nearly 18 years. So a very long time. And I started my career journey as an assistant at a school that I went to. And then I joined JP Morgan for 12 years because I needed to get out there. I became a manager at the age of 25 and then moved into investment banking where I led a team of 40 assistants who were all really incredible. But I kind of hit a glass ceiling, so I moved into the chief of staff role at Arcade Media, and before long, after about 18 months, I actually built my own business, which is Premier Admin Services. It's the VA agency for, the corporate world, for small businesses and creators as well. It's been quite the journey, to say the very least. But one of the other factors that I do is mentor and coach the assistant population as well, kind of help to unlock their potential that they've already got within. So today we're going to be talking about facing your fears. I think it's something that is quite the topic for the assistant population as we are on kind of like this journey to be able to find our voice and find where we sit within our business and within our industries that we work in. Really important to understand that fear is something that is actually never going to go away. I'm not here to turn around and tell you today that fear is something that we can just get rid of, but it is something that we can learn to live with. If we look at people on social media, they can come across, the people that we admire, the people that we see all of the time, with all of their successes. That's all well and good, but actually what happens beneath the surface is something that's quite different. If I look at myself and my own kind of career progression and the personal life that I have lived, I have been scared every step of the way. Even doing stuff like this is super, super scary. But we learn to be able to adapt and how we're going to kind of move forward, partnering with fear rather than getting rid of it altogether. And I've been terrified of every single step that I've taken. The first time that I went from my role at JP Morgan, all 12 interviews, it was the scariest thing ever, asking for a pay rise. I remember when I asked for a pay rise for the very first time, that was really scary for me. Or asking for a promotion. The first time that I spoke on stage, I remember I was asked to do a panel discussion about the chief of staff role at the PA show. I was absolutely terrified. All eyes on me and the other panelists. Never have done that before. And I was absolutely petrified. And fear just stands right next to you. It's almost like having the devil on your shoulder and questioning whether you actually should be doing that. But here's the thing. Fear isn't failure. It's feedback. It's a sign that something actually truly matters to us. And it's something that shows us that we really care about what potentially could be. Now, there's a real fine line. I'm absolutely petrified of bees and wasps. That's never going to change. I'm never going to be able to get over that fear. I'm never going to be able to, go to a beehive and start creating my own honey. It's never going to happen. But I also do have a fear of heights and flying, for example. But that doesn't stop me from catching a plane and going off to, New York or wherever it is that I want to be, because I learned to partner with the fear to be able to get to what I want to be doing. But I want to take you on a kind of like a different route and kind of go back to where it all began when we were babies. So we sat up before we crawled before we walked, and we walked before we ran. As a baby, yes, fear isn't something that is completely understood at that particular time, at that such a young age, but babies never ever give up. They fall all of the time, but they continuously get themselves up and keep moving. The problem that we have when we become adults is because we understand what fear is. It's a feeling that we have all of the time, but it's learning to never give up and being able to push forward. Each stage that we kind of go through growing up is clumsy and it's uncertain, and we feel like we're continuously on Bambi legs. But each stage has been progress that has been able to to push ourselves forward and move in the direction that we want to be able to do, whether it's with regards to our personal lives or whether it's with regards to our professional career progression as well. All wobbly little steps towards something new, but we always get there in the end. So where does fear actually come from? So fear isn't just about sweaty palms and racing hearts. It's the quiet hesitation before we actually begin to start speaking up. It's saying, oh, maybe next year for that promotion or pay rise. It's avoiding a conversation that could actually move things forward. It's saying they don't have time to have coffee with me, when actually all you want to be able to do is network and learn. So what are the key factors? Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of visibility, fear of change. As assistants, we are absolute experts at managing other people's decisions, managing other people's time, managing what they're going to be doing every single day. But when it comes to managing our own decisions, we often default to safety due to fear. Safety feels really comfortable. It feels like it's our solitude, but it's not always where we see growth, or at least in the time frame that we want to be able to see that growth happen. A lot of this, unfortunately, comes from that word just still being utilized in our vocabulary. Now, I'm pleased to see things really beginning to take a shift now over the past sort of 2 to 3 years, where businesses are really beginning to see exactly what the assistant does do on a day-to-day basis, which is incredible. And that comes from us because we're able to verbalize what that looks like to our executives and to the people that we're working with. But it can look like a dark aura hanging around us all, telling us that we're not worth it, that we're just an assistant, that we're not right fit for that role or promotion, we're not ready yet. And judgment and change are the biggest factors of fear. So we need to recognize first who we are, what our values are, and understand that we bring a lot to the table, personally and professionally. When it comes down to judgment and change, we can see it as if we fail, we'll be judged. If we show up, we'll be judged on how we show up and, how we present ourselves. Fear can also look a little bit different. It can come up in ways that we don't actually expect it to come up, not in a quiet form. It can come up masked as pure arrogance and cockiness. And I'm going to give you a really personal example of that. So during my dating world of 9 years single before I met my partner, I turned up to dates in a real arrogant manner. I would interview them. And that was purely because I was scared of getting hurt. But it took one person to really kind of kick me into shape and just say, sometimes you have to be vulnerable. And when I became vulnerable, that's how I then met my partner. So let's look at fear in our career. There's 3 main areas. You've got promotion, progress, and recognition. You've got networking and visibility, and you've got conversations with leaders. When I look at the assistant role and think about what that can be, those are the 3 main areas where when I speak to mentees or people that I'm coaching, those are always the 3 areas that can be the most scary for people to be able to take up. So if we look into promotion, progress, and recognition, I get a lot of mentees and people that I coach turn around and say to me, do you know what, I will just go for that when I feel ready. But readiness is a bit of a myth. And I can tell you now, I wasn't ready to be a leader at 25. It wasn't the time for me at all to be able to become a leader. But actually in hindsight, it was the time. I was ready for that. But it was the decision that I made to be ready at that time that made me into the manager that I then was at JP Morgan. And we never feel ready for anything that we're about to do. And that's always the fear creeping in that makes us feel that way. We just decide to be ready and just jump. It's scary, and I can admit to nights of tears after making a decision that led to great fear daily. When I built my business, it was the scariest decision of my life to be able to do that. And it was a very quick decision to make as well. It was something that I'd thought about for a while, but actually building what I wanted to build and executing that didn't take too long. But it was scary every single day. not knowing whether it was going to be a success, not knowing whether we were going to, push forward and get clients and be able to do all of the things that we now do today. And I spent a lot of time just continuously hiding back and also making decisions, not on time that could have then been detrimental to the business. But the rewards that came were beyond anything that I could imagine. And as Premier Admin Services begins to grow and push forward, it's still scary, fear still sits in, but I can see the rewards coming every single day. Fear can disguise itself as logic. It can turn around and tell you, do you know what? It's not the right time. You shouldn't be doing this just yet. But underneath the truth of the reason is purely, what if I fail? What if that client doesn't want to be able to take on working with Premier Admin Services? What if I ask for a promotion and they turn around and say no? What if I ask for a pay rise and they say no? What if I ask that person for a coffee and they say no? But if you change your mindset and instead ask the question, what might I learn if I try? You will learn through every decision, every leap that you make. Every leap that I've personally taken and professionally was built on hugely shaky legs. Even doing things like this is always on very, very shaky legs. But those legs do get stronger with every step that you take. And it's not something that happens overnight. It is a long game. But starting now helps you to be able to build the confidence that you need to partner with the fear on a daily basis. So I'll give you an example. I started running this year. And now I have decided that next year I'm going to do a half marathon. Do I think I'm crazy? Yes. Do my friends think I'm absolutely insane? Totally. And I'm so nervous. But I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it because I also want to be able to prove to myself that I can. And I know that I can. But I'm looking forward to the feeling of that accomplishment at the end. When you grab the medal, or, if you're going for that promotion, you get that promotion at the end, it feels amazing to do so. Networking and visibility is one of my favorite topics to be able to talk about. If anyone knows me, networking is something that just shines a light and this really positive aura. And it is such an incredible journey to go down. But a lot of people, not just assistants, absolutely global wide, are really scared of kind of putting themselves out there. And it can be completely understandable. It terrifies people to put themselves out there. We tell ourselves we're not a people person. We don't know what to say. How do I introduce myself? But networking isn't a performance. It's just about curiosity. And the fact is, with especially the assistant population, we are actually networking every single day. You're speaking to the new person that comes into the company and saying hello to them and welcoming them. You're taking on that new executive and you're building that relationship with them. Maybe you've taken on a new client and you're building that relationship with them as well. But as soon as we label something as networking, so why don't you come to this networking event that I'm hosting or I'm going to, and it would be really good if you were my plus one. We hide back into the closet as soon as we label it. But we reach out to hundreds of people every single week. So why does it seem so big to reach out to someone and just say, hey, fancy grabbing coffee? Or I've seen that you're going to this event. Can I come too? Every major conversation or opportunity that I've had started with a conversation. It wasn't a big pitch. It wasn't a huge formal intro. It was just me saying hello to someone. It was showing interest. It was following up. It was just listening sometimes is the biggest factor when it comes down to networking. People want to be heard. You want to be heard. So think about how other people would see that as well. And also, when you go to these events, if you like, or if you're having coffee with someone, remember that they're probably feeling exactly the same way as well. Maybe it's something that they don't do all of the time. The more visible we allow ourselves to be, the more opportunities can find us. But here's the thing, networking and visibility or anything associated with fear requires some form of vulnerability. So it's opening up yourself just a little bit to be able to allow that to come into your life. It's where fear lives, in vulnerability, and you can't have one without the other. But remembering that you are networking every day without even realizing it, and having a mindset shift will help you to be able to push through. My advice is to just don't label it. Don't label it as networking. Just label it as something that you do every single day. Conversation with leaders, another really big one. And yeah, it's a really scary thing when you have to push back. But that's fear in communication, especially when we think about the people that we support or our managers or someone who we might see as more senior than us. We worry, who am I to challenge them? But being in an assistant role, no matter what your title is, or if we look at it from a broad angle of business support roles, it's not about being obedient, it's about partnership. So you were hired into that particular role because your view adds value. And so often we hold back from that when actually we have such a bird's eye view of everything that's going on. But sometimes we do actually need to push back or challenge something. Fear tells us to just stay small, but confidence in what we are saying says to contribute anyway. So I remember as a supervisor, when I got moved into investment banking, I would attend these supervisor meetings on a weekly basis, and I would sit there really quietly. And I did that for about probably 5 to 6 weeks. And my manager pulled me to a side and he was like, you're going to have to speak up at some point. And so the following week, I did. I was the last person to speak, but I challenged a number of different outcomes. And by the end of it, there was some huge impact off the back of that because I had seen things in a different way that people hadn't noticed. Be that person in the room that speaks up at the right time, but don't allow fear to stop you from saying anything at all. Courage doesn't have to be loud. It's sometimes just a quiet, actually, I disagree. And it can be spoken with respect. So the truth about fear. When faced with fear, we are faced with a choice. So looking at things from probably a slightly morbid outlook is when we are presented with anything in life, when we are presented with grief, for example, those cards are dealt with us. Now we have a choice in how we deal with those cards, but generally we move forward, we handle what's been presented to us, and we power through one way or another, and we absolutely get there. But when we are faced with fear, we have a choice. In the choice we receive, it determines whether we are going to take the slow stream or the rapid rivers. So as an example, with building a business or taking that promotion, we're presented with, do I ask for that promotion or do I not ask for that promotion? So we can stay in the slow stream, which is calm, it's predictable, it's safe. We know we're going to move forward eventually, but maybe not at the pace that we want to. But if we choose the rapid river, that can look uncertain, it can look messy, and it looks completely wild. It's almost like standing on an edge of a cliff, looking out into the oblivion, not really actually knowing what is going to happen with that first step. But choosing rapid river or the slow stream, both are going to get you to somewhere new. It just really depends on how quickly you want to be able to get there. Fear convinces us to stay small, wait for the perfect moment, and keep things easy. Choosing rapid river, that's where we grow. And it doesn't mean to say that the slow stream won't, but we will get there a lot quicker and we will learn faster and we will learn more by making the mistakes potentially that might come with that. And it's learning how to live with that as well. It's where we find our edges, it's where we find our voice, find our confidence. And there's no shame in any of that, choosing what path you want to go down. But it's learning that the rapid river, a bit like Pocahontas, not knowing what's around the corner, around the river bend, will help us to get where we want to be a lot sooner. The question becomes, which current do you actually want to carry you? Fear isn't going to go away. You don't outgrow it. You just get better at dealing with it and recognizing its voice and deciding to move anyway. Think about when we learned to walk. We fell all the time. We bashed our head. We got bruises. As I said, it's a bit like Bambi on ice. But we didn't stop and we didn't give up. We just kept trying and we kept going until we mastered it. Assistants you see on socials that you really look up to or you admire, they're not fearless. They live in fear every single day as well. They've just made their peace with discomfort, and they've learned to act while scared. Every time I speak at events like this, I'm a bag of nerves. And maybe that actually does come across, although I hope that it doesn't. That flutter doesn't disappear. But for me now, personally, I see it as this energy. It's proof that I care, that I want to get that voice out there, that I want people to understand my points of view and adapt it to their own points of view around whatever topic it is that I would be speaking about. It's the fact that I want to be able to push and progress. So how do we get over fear? The truth of the matter is that you don't. You learn to partner with it. So for example, a networking event that I went to that started my own networking journey. I met this person, some of you might know her name's Lisa. She is the founder of Miss Jones, and I met her because I was arranging a particular event and I got introduced to her in order to be able to find a venue. Found said venue and she was like, hey, why don't you come to this event? It's a private dine-in, showcasing a particular restaurant, and I think you'd really enjoy it. So I agreed. I'm a bit of a yes person. That's another thing about me. I tend to say yes without thinking about things. And the day of the event came round and all of a sudden it dawned on me that I was going to be walking into a room, a private dining room, where there wasn't a particularly decent way to escape, no Irish exit or anything like that, of 12 people that were complete strangers to me. And as I was leaving the office for the day, I was like, I just won't go. I won't go. I don't want to go. I don't really have time to. It's dark. I've got to get home from London. It's going to take me sort of like 90 minutes to be able to get home after this. I don't want to go. But I could feel my legs pushing me in the right direction of the venue. And I was still moving forward towards the venue. So I went and I rocked up to this restaurant and there was fortunately some bubbles on offer. But put that aside and I met these 12 individuals and I sat in a room with them. I ate dinner with them. I had the view of the venue as well, which was absolutely gorgeous. And it was liberating. It was one of the best evenings of my life starting that. And thereafter, I just continuously went to networking events. I then went to one of their fairs that they had, where I met the BDM of the Corrigan collection. That network then led me to my first client at Premier Admin Services, which then led me to meet the person that I am now with as my partner. What I'm saying here is, one, network is powerful, but two, if I didn't face my fear on that particular day, and if I didn't go to that particular event, I wouldn't actually have progressed to where I am today that has shaped my path for me through making that decision by going to that particular event. So when we think about fear and how to overcome it, you need to ask yourself, what is actually the worst that is going to happen? What could go wrong? Are they going to say no? Okay, no problem. Try again another time. Nobody liked your post? Okay, no problem. Reword it or write something new. You didn't get your PB at Parkrun. That's always my thing. Okay, no problem. Push harder next time. See what happens. And you know what? It's okay if you didn't. It's all about progress. It's about showing up. Everyone here has probably had bigger fish to fry as well. So think about that. Actually asking somebody for coffee or pushing back to your exec or asking for a promotion, they're not as big as what you think that they could be. It's a big deal in your career progression, and I'm not saying that. But asking the question is a small thing that determines the big outcome that you are looking for. So let's look at it this way. Name your fear. Say what you are afraid of out loud and get it out of your head. Fear loses power when it's defined, and you can work with it instead of against it when it has a name. Normalize it. Everyone feels fear. I don't know anyone who hasn't been scared of something in their life. And everyone deals with it in completely different ways. So when we look at everyone that we kind of see on social media, and I know I mention social media quite a lot, but it's a big thing now in our lives. It's something that we are all on, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. TikTok's massive now. We have access to see and view all of these people and what they do on a day-to-day basis. And for a long time, especially, for me, I remember when it was just Facebook and I was on Facebook and I was seeing everyone and looking at the people who I'd connected with who were my friends, not even sort of like colleagues or anything like that. I would compare myself to them. But that is also an area where fear comes in, because we turn around and we say to ourselves, I'm not as good as that particular person. I haven't progressed as far as that particular person. But it's actually just recognizing that we are on our own career paths and we will do things at our own pace. But hey, I'm going to fight through that fear and I'm going to do things in my particular way. So I would suggest, when you normalize it and realizing that, everyone feels that particular way, that reach out to that person. Fight that fear first. Ask that person, how did you feel when you were speaking at that particular event? How did you feel when you asked for that promotion? How did you feel when you asked for that pay rise? What did it feel like to go to that particular event and being an attendee? You can guarantee that they are going to turn around and say all of the things. Because remember, fear hides in logic. So they probably had the battle themselves of saying, I don't have time for this. Or, I didn't actually want to go and I wasn't quite sure what to say or how to prepare for it. So reach out and speak to those particular people. Courage isn't exclusive to the bold. So with these people, it's them partnering and having a relationship with fear that helps them to be able to do the things that they want to do at the pace that they want to be able to do it at. Navigate it anyway. The first step that you ever take with something that scares you is always going to be the hardest. And I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. It's going to be brutal and it's going to be really tough for you to be able to take that first step. But the feeling after is something that is just, you can't find the right words to be able to express how it makes you feel, and it makes you want to do more, which helps you then partner with that fear and have a relationship with fear where it doesn't feel like you've got the devil on your shoulder telling you that you shouldn't be doing something. It's not about each step being a mile, it's about it being an inch. I don't know whether anyone has ever seen the image of the two ladders where you've got really big steps that you have to take on one and then little steps on another, but the person who takes the little steps seems higher up on the ladder than what the other person does. It's about taking just those little inches. It's about just sending that one email about what it is that you've been doing every single day that makes you deserve to have that promotion. It's about having that one conversation. Perhaps there's a manager that you've always wanted to speak to. You always might actually run into them in the lift or the lobby or making coffee. But it's that one conversation started. And it's just about saying hello. And it's that one boundary voiced. The difference between those who move forward and those who stay still, it's still not fear, it's choice. We choose the paths that we want to be able to take, whether it's, as we said, the rapid rivers or the slow stream. Both are absolutely fine. But it's our choice what we choose to do and how we choose to move forward. It's something that we learn to live with every single day. And I think about the fears that I have. And, I get a lot of people turn around and say to me, you don't know how you do what you do, and all of these amazing assistants who have now built these incredible communities and businesses, that's all started from fear, but it's built also with passion and drive to want to be able to succeed, not just for themselves, but for others as well. When I look at other people's careers that I've spoken to from an assistant point of view, or even my own, we are also shaping what it looks like for other assistants to come into our particular space. And I know for me that I want assistants to be able to see all of us progress, have that voice at the table, but we need to be able to have those voices ourselves as well. And just fighting that fear for the first time will help you to be able to take each step in order for you to not feel necessarily confident or extroverted or anything like that. It's just about making you move forward the way that you want to, so that also others can see what progression could look like for them as well. So fear doesn't mean stop. Just means that you're standing at the edge of something that truly matters. We are always learning and starting again, crawling before we walked and walking before we ran. Every stage that we have stood on at any part of our life journey, starting school, going to university, doing that training course, it's the stage that we have stood on, not really knowing what might happen beyond that. So when you find yourself scared to move, just remember, you've absolutely been here before. You've been fighting fear since you were a baby, trying to sit up, but wobbling over to your side, or trying to crawl, but not being able to get your legs or your body in the right position in order to be able to do so. It's walking and not being able to do so. I've seen many of people still do that. I still trip over my own feet all of the time, but we still put one foot in front of the other. And it's the same as we get older. It's just purely having that understanding of what fear means. But it's changing your mindset in the sense of, what does fear mean for me? And how am I going to work with it in order to be able to get to where I want to go? I would always suggest having a mentor around that as well. Sometimes having, the help and support that you need is a great thing to do. Having that voice of reason. And that doesn't mean that everybody needs that. But asking for help is also not failure. If you need help with something, it's always better to have that and to be able to have a different opinion on something for you then to be able to move forward. Again, when I was building Premier Admin Services, it wasn't something that I did silently alone. I had a big discussion with my brother about it, actually. Great voice of reason for me. He was the person that said, this is definitely something that you need to do. And he said one line to me, which was, well, if it doesn't work out, you'll just get another job. And it's true. That is you have to ask yourself, what is actually the worst that could happen if something goes wrong? And as we said before, there's a fine line between things that we're scared of, that we're not going to do, or purely it's not fear, it's just we don't want to. And that's okay. That's a whole new array of choices. But we can't, the things that we want to do, where fear is holding us back, we can't allow fear to take us over. That then stops us from being able to progress in the way that we want to. So it's just about, every time you feel like you're going to fall, allow yourself to fall. Mistakes are unwritten lessons that we didn't see before. So when you get back up and you try again, which you absolutely should, don't ever allow yourself to not do something because you tried it before and it didn't work out. Maybe it just actually wasn't the right time, but at least you tried. So then when you try again, you've learned everything that you have in order to be able to try it a little bit differently and then succeed with it. And remember that success means something different to all of us. To me, it's just a feeling. It's not a materialistic thing. It is a feeling. What does success feel like to you? Confidence isn't the absence of fear. It's a quiet partnership and decision to keep moving forward. So you don't need to be fearless. You just need to be able to keep moving forward and learning as you go on your journey. I'm going to take a breather and just see whether there are any questions that people want to ask. No? Amazing. Being able to speak about fear so openly is something that is really, really important. So if you are scared of something, if fear is holding you back, you should definitely vocalize it. And whether you are vocalizing it to yourself or somebody who you trust, to be able to talk about fear very, very in an honest way, you absolutely should do so. Every time we speak about fear, it loses its power against what's happening. Because rather than spending the time going around in your head all of the different factors as to why you shouldn't do something, then it can have a really negative impact on it. We've just had a question come through. This is from Phoebe. How have you found networking opportunities within our EA world? I think that's a really great question. I love networking with other EAs. I have learned more about what it means to be an EA by networking with other EAs. I spent 12 years at JP Morgan, which was an amazing part of my career, and it was great, but I felt like there was something more. So when I started networking with other assistants and realizing that there was a whole world out there that was completely different to JP Morgan, I was very much so JP Morgan branded. I didn't know any different. I learned so much more. I built a bigger skill set. I understood what it meant to be an assistant more as well. Bearing in mind that when I did finally understand what it meant to be an assistant in my early years at JP, it wasn't actually via an assistant, it was via managing director. So all of a sudden, when I started networking with other EAs outside of JP Morgan, I got their perspective on it. I got a better understanding. I didn't feel so isolated or like I was always sort of on my own battling with, or this is really frustrating, like I don't really feel seen or heard. But actually networking with other EAs, it helped me to understand that I wasn't siloed in that there are a whole world of us. I was actually saying this to another event that I was speaking at a couple of weeks ago. What I love about the assistant population is, yes, we have our teams in our industries, it's great, but the fact of the matter is that actually we are one team globally across all of the different industries. And when you look at it in that particular manner, like I've seen things on LinkedIn, somebody will say something and then all of a sudden assistants across the globe kind of like chime in, and that is absolutely incredible. Resources that I would recommend. So when it comes down to networking, firstly is bring yourself, be authentic, don't be anything but. And I think LinkedIn is a really good place for you to find out what events are taking place. And Eventbrite is actually one that I utilize as well quite a lot to be able to see what's taking place, especially if I wanted something local to me as well. That can be a really, really great source and hub for you to be able to find out what's going on. But also speaking to other assistants, seeing where they're going, what they're up to, and seeing whether you can join them as well. So utilize your network to be able to network. And that goes back to fear. Like if you haven't started networking today, then I would strongly encourage you to begin that journey. And that's just as simple as reaching out to that one person that perhaps you wanted to speak to but haven't, or maybe there's somebody on LinkedIn that you really wanted to get talking to. Just send them a little message on LinkedIn. I can guarantee that they're going to get back to you one way or another. And that's where your journey kind of starts. And people remember each other. So what I mean by that is there might not be something now, but when something does come up, they'll remember that you reached out to them. And that's a lot of how my world has kind of like grown, is through facing my fears in reaching out to people and, doing things like this. People will remember who you are and will come back to you when something might crop up. So as an example, I met the BDM of the Corrigan collection, and that was probably about 18 months before I actually built Premier Admin Services. But when I built Premier Admin Services, she did no more than reach back out to me and say, hey, I know this person who's looking for a VA. Can I make an introduction? So all of those little key factors. But again, if I hadn't fought through the fear, through that first networking event that I went to, none of that would have happened, or at least not in the way that it would have happened. Things will always move, but just in really different ways. Are there any other questions that people might have? Amazing. Well, I really, really appreciate you creating space for me to be able to talk about fear. As we said before, fear, when defined and spoken about, really does lose its power. And it enables you to be able to do the things that you want to be able to do. And I really hope that you find it beneficial. I'm always available if you ever want to be able to talk about something that you're scared of and you're not quite sure what step to take or how to overcome that fear. My door is always open, always really, really happy to speak to anyone at all. You can find details of me on LinkedIn and through my website, Instagram as well. I don't really utilize it quite a lot, but it's on there as well. But thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.